Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Anna, I'm one of the Tommy's midwives, and today I'm joined by three mums. I have Michelle, Olivia and Nicola here with me, and today we're going to be talking about pregnancy after loss and parenting after loss or premature birth. We're talking about this topic because this week Tommy's has launched a new campaign, and it's called Your Baby's Mum, and it's all about our mental health in pregnancy and also following birth. And we know that this is a particular issue for mums who are having a baby after they've lost a baby before, because they're having to cope with very, very high anxiety, and how are they able to even consider thinking about after the birth when they've lost a baby and they can't imagine ever taking a live baby home. So I'm going to start with Michelle, who's going to talk to us about both her personal and professional background in this area.
Hello, I'm Michelle and I'm a mum to two girls. My first daughter, Orla, was stillborn in 2016 at 37 weeks. I was very lucky to get pregnant quite quickly afterwards, and my second daughter was born just 11 months later. But I guess what that meant was that I was navigating lots of grief and trauma and the anxiety of pregnancy after loss all in one go. And I think it's a particularly difficult time. I think not lots of people really understand the challenges that come with that. And in my work, in my job, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I do see a lot of women now in my practice who are either pregnant after loss, or trying to get pregnant after loss, or parenting after loss. So I'm kind of thinking about the things that I know that might help them navigate those difficult times.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I've got a 1-year-old called Xavier, and he was born premature at 31 weeks last year, 2018. Can't even remember the year that we're in. And before that, I lost a child who was stillborn at 37 weeks, and that was due to placental abruption. And really, I'm just here to kind of offer my insight as a mum who's had to deal with a loss and then dealing with pregnancy and then parenting as well after the loss.
Okay, yeah, I'm Nicola, people call me P, and I had a little boy called Winter, and he was born alive and well in October 2015, and he became very unwell shortly after birth. We had him for half an hour before he stopped breathing in the delivery room, and he was resuscitated and taken care of, but unfortunately he was too poorly and he died the next day. Following that, I had 2 very early miscarriages before I fell pregnant with my daughter, who's alive and well, Raven. She's going to be 2 next week. And I put together a book after my experience of losing Winter and pregnancy after loss, a guide to sort of help other people, and I've been blogging and writing about it. And I'm here, just to sort of share my voice on pregnancy and parenting after loss.
So I think some people have already sent in some questions. We've got a list of topics that we're going to talk about today amongst ourselves. But if you do have any questions or anything that you wanted to ask us, or I guess just ask our opinions on these things, then do feel free to message them in. I think that's how it works. And then we'll be told if you do send your questions over. I think one of the main topics that we were going to cover today, and I think it's the one thing that I end up being asked the most about pregnancy and parenting after loss, is managing anxiety. And I just think that seems to be like the kind of massive overriding theme of navigating I think life in general after loss, but certainly pregnancy and parenting. I don't know what your guys' experiences are, because we've all had, I guess, very different experiences, haven't we, of loss?
I think mine, I would probably say, like the first pregnancy, we didn't really tell people that much anyway, because I had like severe morning sickness, so I was always in and out of hospital. It was just a really, really hard pregnancy, so it was literally like our parents that knew, and like my sisters and his like immediate family. And I think we just never really thought anything would go wrong, apart from the fact that I was just ill. So then after everything kind of went wrong, then when I got pregnant again, really dealing with that anxiety and being pregnant again was probably the best but the scariest time of my life, because it was like, is this going to happen again? Like, how do I deal with it if it happens again? Like, what is even the point? And just the level of anxiety during the whole period was just, I was still sick again, so just as sick as I was in the first one. So then I had to battle kind of two conditions, like severe morning sickness and anxiety, and it was just, I don't know, it just makes it very difficult. And then it's difficult to talk about because you don't want to put bad thoughts out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, similar experience for me really. I think my pregnancy with Winter, we told people when I was 9 weeks pregnant, and I bought baby things at like 9 weeks pregnant. I'd only got a positive pregnancy test. I'd not even had a scan. Like for me, I was pregnant and I was going to have a baby, and I knew about miscarriage, but for me that was like a rare thing that barely ever happened. And stillbirth and neonatal death was something that happened in other countries, or you know, really poorly babies. I never imagined you would have a baby that would be born alive and healthy and then die, or a stillbirth. Like those sorts of things were so out of my, you know, I didn't reject it because I didn't even think about it. So my pregnancy with Winter was just excitement from the very beginning, decorating the nursery, everything, and absolutely no negative thoughts at all. And then pregnancy with Raven following Winter's loss and 2 miscarriages was anxiety, just total anxiety. When I think about it now, even I can feel that. The anxiety. I don't think I've ever shaking it off. It was just a feeling of dread, I think, for the whole time, and not really wanting to think about my baby too much or even bond with them too much because of the fear of, if I get too excited and then they die, then it'll hurt me even more. So sort of having to have a bit of separation from it.
It's kind of like you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop type of feeling. So you don't want to be too invested. You know you kind of have to deal with the fact that you're having a baby because you're pregnant, but it then stops where everyone else gets to have a baby and enjoy that pregnancy. You're just filled with that dread, that hang on, I might not be able to actually hold my baby or actually have a baby after this, where, like you said, it's never a thought, is it? Like pregnancy to me has always been guaranteed. You get pregnant and then you have your baby and that's it. Like I did not know anything else until it actually happened. So just the anxiety levels are just ridiculous and they're tiring, and pregnancy is hard enough without having to deal with such levels of anxiety.
Because we were just talking before, weren't we, about like anxiety and just how exhausting it is, because your body is in this kind of fight-flight state. You're just constantly running on adrenaline, and even when your anxiety is kind of lower, it's still there. It's still always kind of just buzzing around in the background, always. And then you'll have this wave because maybe you can't feel the baby moving as much, or you just kind of, I don't know, just have an intrusive thought or memory of what happened before, and suddenly you're just kind of really flooded with it again. So it's no wonder that it is just absolutely exhausting. How did it manifest for you guys? Because I feel like my anxiety when I was pregnant was quite different from my anxiety after I gave birth. But I was anxious both times, but they felt really different. Because I felt really, like, I think I just felt on edge the whole time when I was pregnant, and that sort of jittery feeling.
I think I agree with you, Mum. I felt quite different. I think before I had Raven, my anxiety was that I was waiting for something bad to happen, and then when I'd had Raven, and I had experienced quite severe grief after that, which I'm sure we'll cover, but my anxiety, it was different. I don't think I was necessarily waiting for something bad to happen to her, but it was just then, how do I deal with a living baby, which is probably like a normal anxiety of a mum, but also having the back history of, my last baby died, so it's you can't really relax and look after your baby the same way.
I think it was up until, I think I was saying this the other day to my sisters, I think it was up until Xavier was probably about 6-7 months that I actually started believing I have a child. Because you're just filled with so much, it just never ends, it never stops. Like you said, there's different types of it from before you give birth to when you give birth, but it just stays throughout, and it takes a lot of time to accept. And it's not like I was willing or wishing or anything, because obviously no one does, but it's just, it felt like should I be too happy? Like, okay, maybe something will happen, because the first time nothing was supposed to happen, and it did. So now it's like, fair enough, I've got my baby. And then after that had happened, so because I'd never really thought about it, after my stillbirth happened, I then got into reading. Like, I'm one of those researchers, research everything. And then after I had the baby, I was still a bit like, okay, so I didn't have a stillbirth, but there's also a chance of this, there's a chance of sudden death infants. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think the first 3 weeks, or even longer, I just couldn't sleep. Like, because he was premature, so he was in the NICU for about 3 weeks, and we had this thing where you did like rounds, and they got the parents, they were really, really good. It was at Coventry University Hospital, and anyone's watching, thank you very much. You guys were amazing. But we did this thing where they'd get the parents to like check like the temperature of the baby and stuff in the incubator. Now, like, I became obsessed with this, to the point where like I had thermometers in pretty much every room. Like, it had to be, in my head he was still in an incubator, he had to be at this set temperature, and it was just, it kind of just took over. I feel like I kind of lost the first couple of months of being a mum, because all I ever thought about was, is he okay? Is he breathing? Is he, do you know what I mean? Is he warm enough? Is he too hot? Like, what's going to happen? And it's just filled with dread and panic.
Absolutely. And I think lots of people expect that once you've got your baby at home, that you're going to relax and you're going to be cool. But like saying, your anxiety can sometimes leak and transfer into different things. Because I experienced stillbirth, but then I started to worry about everything else that could possibly go wrong. Like, oh my goodness, is she still breathing? Is the room too hot? Is it too cold? Is she sleeping in the right way? And what happens if I fall asleep holding her? It became very, and I'm sure lots of parents who haven't gone through loss have similar anxieties, but it feels like it's maybe just that bit more
because you've lived it, so you've experienced, you know what it's like for your baby to die, so you don't have to imagine how awful it would be for your baby to die, you know, so it's like a bigger fear, isn't it, I think?
Absolutely.
And do you think it's with family and friends, they're so sort of, well, you've got a live baby now, now it's kind of, it's the happy ever after that you were looking for, which I don't know, getting that kind of reaction from people, obviously often with good intent, can be quite, isolating and silences you from perhaps talking about what what's really on your mind, like the constant checking of the temperature and things like that.
I feel like people perhaps breathe a sigh of relief, like, thank goodness she's got a living baby now, so we can all relax a bit now. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's going to be happy now.
And I think it puts more pressure on you as well, because like, my support system was brilliant, but at the same time I kind of felt bad to even tell them about my levels of anxiety, because I felt like I'm still exactly, like it felt like I was still maybe coming across as complaining or hypochondriac sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And for me it was just like, okay, how do I explain to people that I do sometimes feel a little bit crazy, but there's reasons why, and I'm just scared to death that something is going to happen and I'm not going to be able to cope. And like, everyone's always like, oh, you were so strong and you're great and you're so great and so strong, and it's just like, actually I really wasn't. I completely lost it. It was all a blur. I just did it in like auto mode, like I just don't even know how it happened. And I think it's hard to have to tell people that you're still feeling those, because I think before that they can understand why you're so anxious and why you're feeling the way you are,
and then now continue being the black cloud.
Exactly. So it's like now it's like, okay, we're trying to all be happy for you, but it doesn't even seem like you're happy for yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, are you taking this too far?
But it's interesting what you were saying as well, that I think other people probably have that assumption as well, but I think we do it internally as well. So I do remember after Orla died and kind of walking around and seeing other mums and kind of seeing people complain about sleepless nights and things, and I was thinking, you have no idea, like, I'm never going to complain about this, and this is the worst thing, nothing could ever be harder than this. But it's just hard in a different way. And it was trying to compare them is what's worse, and not, I think is a bit futile, because it was just hard in a different way, and it's not separate, they're on top of each other. You're still grieving, and you're still navigating trauma, and you're dealing with having a newborn baby, which can be really stressful anyway. And then if you add in, like our little girl had reflux, and that was really, really challenging, and I mean, we just didn't sleep.
I remember
That was
Raven
really
had
tough.
colic, and I remember like waiting for Dean to get home. I stood at the window, she was just screaming, and I was just crying, just looking out the window, waiting for Dean to get home. And I remember thinking then, I wanted this, and I shouldn't be upset about this, because this is what I wanted, but it's hard. And I think it took me having Raven to sort of relax a little bit about like my judgments of like all the mums when they were saying, I'm so tired, and I used to sort of in my mind think, well, I'm tired and my baby died. Whereas now I'm a bit more like, okay, I understand you're still allowed to complain. It's just
Exactly. Give me my question.
Got quite a few questions actually, but we'll just start with this one. So Michelle was saying that she feels like there was a lot of focus on pregnancy after loss and how she was feeling during her pregnancy, but she actually found that that childbirth was a hugely emotional time for her, so following the loss of her daughter. And I just wondered kind of what you think about that, like how was your experience of birth following the loss of your children?
So personally, I had a C-section because he was premature. It was another placental abruption, and I remember like throughout I literally had to fight to have my baby, and literally be like, he's not moving, someone needs to do something, let's go downstairs now, take him out or I will. Like, I literally lost it. And I think because I had built up in those 31 weeks all about just trying to stay pregnant and keep I knew I was going to have the baby early anyway, and it was going to be by C-section. But you know what, I'd never actually really thought about the actual childbirth. So when we got into the room, my partner was I'd literally been laid there on the table, they'd done everything, couldn't feel anything, and then the doctors were like, I'm going to start now, and I was literally holding his hand and I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I can still feel everything, I can feel it all. Like, I had literally researched every possible thing that could ever go wrong during pregnancy, but when it actually came to how even like a C-section works and what they're going to have to do, I didn't ever bother. So that to me was a massive shock, because in my head I don't even know how I expected I was going to give birth. It was just going to go from pregnancy to then holding your baby, and that was that. But like, I think because you're trying so hard to just focus on being pregnant and staying pregnant, the actual childbirth itself, how that's going to happen, you just don't, because you don't want to think that far anyway. And then what's going to happen after, well, that's even completely out of the window, do you know what I mean? And I think I found that really, really hard to deal with when it got to the time of having the baby.
I think I quite good support really, because my hospital were really good, and I talked to them a lot about my anxiety. I did have quite a lot of anxiety around labour, because even though Winter was born alive, because he stopped breathing in the delivery room so shortly after being born, my memory of labour was my baby being taken away and then ultimately dying. So I couldn't even think about the nice bits of the labour that I had, before that happened. So I was really, really frightened. But my hospital were great, and they were, they really put in place lots of things to help me. Like I knew my midwife. They let me have a tour of the hospital. It was where I had Winter. I was going to be in a different room, and it was all things like that. And it might sound daft to someone, but that's all the things that make it important. Because if I was in the same room that Winter was born in, for me, that's just going to be. Some people might see that as a nice connection, but when it's a traumatic thing, it's not, is it? So it does really matter, doesn't it, what care you get during a labour?
Definitely. I mean, I was really lucky. I had the same midwife for both pregnancies, and likewise had a really similar experience of going and visiting and making sure that we weren't going to be in the same room. I knew I was going to be induced at 37 weeks. I think also what I found really important was being able to, because my only experience of birth had been knowing I was going to give birth to a baby that had already died, and kind of trying to work out what would be different in a labour where there's a baby that is still alive. that there's going to be monitoring and that you will hear a heartbeat and all of those things that kind of didn't, it was hard to get my head round how that would work. But also, I think because I'd spent lots of pregnancy, and I don't know whether it's the same for this Michelle, that being kind of strapped to the monitors was part of it was kind of reassuring and also anxiety provoking. I started to kind of think, can I analyse the CCG monitoring myself, and how am I going to stop myself doing that in labour, where I need to concentrate on just breathing and getting through it, rather than having my head somewhere else. And it was thinking about how do you allocate those tasks out to different people. I did hypnobirthing in my first pregnancy, and I tried to think about how would I adapt those things for a subsequent birth, because lots of things actually I found them very triggering in my next pregnancy.
Like baby comes when baby's ready.
Yeah, baby knows best.
Yeah,
mine
too. Sadly, and I'd say I couldn't use those sorts of things, and I would find seeing things like that on social media quite tricky. But it was like, how can I take the bits that do help, like you know that I'm being supported in this moment, and I can trust other people, or I think that was quite helpful for me. But I think it is important to plan and prepare for your birth, and it's about having someone to do that with you as well. And I think that's why this tool in particular is really good. Is thinking about who the Tommy's wellbeing tool, who can you kind of recruit in to help you with this.
And when you guys were doing that, where you were getting people to sort of on board to help you, did that help the anxiety perhaps for that day, or did it make for a better week? Are you able to?
Absolutely.
Did it have a positive impact?
For me, it definitely had a positive impact. I wanted to have a voice. You know what I mean? I just wanted the people that I was going to be in when I was in labour, the people and the doctors around. I just wanted them to know, like, what had happened to me before with Winter, and how terrified I was, and that I've got a good reason to be terrified, even though labour's terrifying anyway, can be. Do you know what I mean? So that was just important that they just had that one, they knew, and I felt like it's like having I said this the other day, it's like having an ally. You know, if you're worried about something, you can tell other people, and then they're sort of like on your team. That's what it feels like. So it's like you can trust them more. That's how it felt for me.
Yeah, definitely getting your team crew around you to say like, I'm doing the thinking for you when you're not able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's if you've got a good midwife or obstetrician or whoever you've got, but also like whoever your birthing partner's going to be as well.
That's so important. Yeah.
It's really important, isn't it? That they're kind of on the same page.
Michelle, I wonder if we could just hop back. So even before pregnancy, Mariette got in touch to say that they lost their baby at 32 weeks, and they now feel like they've lost that pregnancy innocence. And what she was asking is like, how on earth do you decide when you're ready to try again after loss?
Gosh, it's a really hard question. So I think it's really different for everyone. I mean, certainly from my personal perspective, it's almost like I didn't even think about it. It was just a case of just going to do it.
I was exactly the same.
I think I was in that sort of. I was still very numb because it was still a lot, shock at what happened, and I was on autopilot, and all I could think about was I just have to get pregnant again. So it wasn't necessarily a conscious decision in our circumstances.
I don't think I necessarily thought I have to get pregnant right now, but I think I was kind of very open to it and just like, do you know what will be will be, and I wasn't trying to not get pregnant as I had been before. And that's like the funniest thing, because you feel like you spend so long as a woman being in relationships and trying not to get pregnant, and then when something like that happens, it's like you have to think, okay, when do I get pregnant, and should I not, and wanting to get pregnant instantly, but you've spent the last 10 years of your life trying to stop yourself from getting pregnant. So I think for us it was just a case of, do you know what will be, and we're not trying, but we are, type of thing. So we weren't like necessarily checking any calendars or anything like that, but we weren't trying not to, if that makes sense. So I think it's just when you're ready.
I was desperate. I was so desperate. I mean, even I think it was the week after when she'd been born, and I feel like almost guilty saying this, but we talked straight away about wanting to start trying again. For me, it was just like lots of things. I I had this new realisation that being pregnant doesn't mean you get a baby. So for me, I was like, well, I need to get pregnant because at least that's like one step done, like one step closer to, I mean, you can tick that off, yeah, I'm pregnant right now, just got to get through 12 weeks or whatever. So I was, for me, I had a desperation to get pregnant because I thought, well, it might take me 3 months to get pregnant, then I might have the baby, and then it might die, so then I have to try again. So, you know, I'm going to be like 50, you know, by the time I have a baby.
Yeah,
so
I can really relate to that.
and I got completely consumed with fertility tracking, sticks. It completely took over my life, and especially having those early pregnancies, those early losses, those 2 that I had, it's just spiraled me to even more. I was just desperate for a baby. But you know, I think it's like I still feel bad saying that because it sounds like I think, oh, I just want a baby quickly just to replace winter. But you know, it's not like that. It was like I've had a baby. I still want a baby, but I've not got my baby. That doesn't stop me from still having that instinct, isn't it? That biology to still want a baby.
And I think it's because it's so individual. Because some people don't have that, and I think even between us, we probably have really some similar experiences,
Absolutely,
some different.
yeah.
But there are like there's so many factors that come into play as well, like age and fertility. Like how did you conceive your baby? Are you having to have fertility treatments? There's just so many things I think that you have to hold in mind, and that whether you want to straight away or whether you want to wait, there's no right or wrong time. It's about what's right for you.
Personal choice, isn't it?
Absolutely.
What you can handle.
It's probably, it's the same as when you decide to start trying for a baby before any loss. Like when's the right time for you? It's completely different for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's not an easy decision. Sometimes I don't feel like it's even necessarily a decision. It's something that you're just like something
just happens.
Or you're hoping for it to happen, or you're just trying or trying not to not try. It's quite. I think it's just very confusing and overwhelming. And there's like hormonal, biological things going on as well.
Yeah.
It's not just about.
So you've just had a baby, so you know your body is prepared for that, isn't it?
Yeah.
For you to be having a baby.
Exactly. It's not like changing a job or.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Some people might, like decide to wait for a bit before, and no right or wrong, isn't it?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I know some of the other questions that come through were about. We spoke a bit about preparing for birth, and then. I think I probably had prepared a fair amount for birth. I think I was so obsessed with birth in my first pregnancy that there was kind of an overflow of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of planning post-birth, I look back now and think, actually, I don't think I even really planned for that with Oliver, actually. Like, we hadn't really ordered the buggy, and we'd only just finished the nursery, and I'd done some classes, but I hadn't planned for what it was like to bring a baby home. It felt like all the classes actually were geared towards birth anyway.
And it's hard to even think past that, isn't it? You know,
Yeah,
with
it's
antenatal
quite
classes for your
abstract.
first baby,
Yeah.
it's a completely, absolutely.
I think even if you prepare physically, so like with winter we got the nursery ready, got the pushchair and stuff. Really, I think in just general, like the general population, people are thinking about being pregnant, like your birth, and then just seems to fall off a cliff, doesn't it? Like your knowledge and support and actual realistic expectations of what it's like to have a baby, because it just takes you by shock, doesn't it? Really.
Then, with your subsequent pregnancies, did you do any planning? Like, could you even?
Personally, I didn't, and I thank my entire family, his family, my whole support system, because I think everyone just got why we just didn't. So I think the only reason why we even bought a pushchair was because Toys R Us were closing down. Like, it was around that time. Like, I'm not even joking. So we were like, everyone kept saying there's great sales. And we went to Toys R Us, and I was just like, right, we're going to have this. We'll just pay it off bit by bit, but we didn't take it home. I think he actually went to pick it up after, or maybe just a little bit before, but I was like, I do not want anything in here. I don't think I even bought anything. We had loads of clothes and stuff from before that all needed washing and sorting. I think we started doing that maybe like a week before I went into hospital type of thing, but it wasn't anything that anyone ever really spoke about or did. Like, we never really spoke about what's going to happen after. Where's all these clothes going to go? And have you got this ready? Have you bought this? Have you bought that? I think my mum came down once and she bought a load of stuff. We didn't put the cot bed up until I think after he was born, and just little things like that. Like this baby was just so not prepared for. Sorry, Xavier, but like he really wasn't. I just couldn't handle it because I remember before having Xavier and with Jackson, my stillbirth, it was like 37 weeks. So I just had my baby shower. So it happened 4 days after I'd had my baby shower. My sister brought me loads of stuff, like, and all the baby shower stuff. And I remember being in the front room at mother-in-law's, and like we were just folding clothes and, you know, like putting everything in order, saying how cute is this, and look at this Moses basket. Yeah, exactly. And I remember doing all of those things, and then for me to have to go through all of that, I didn't want those memories. Like if anything went wrong, I didn't want to have those memories again of folding his clothes and being excited again. So for me it was like, right, where the hospital is, there's a shop down the road, like we will go there. He will have clothes, it's fine. I think I knew I was going to have a premature baby, never bought a single premature baby thing. I think we ordered it once he was born. That's when we started actually ordering things like from Mother Care, and they do free next day delivery for
Amazon Prime and those sorts of things are like great.
They're so amazing for their premature range. Mother Care does free next day delivery, so we got everything for it relatively quickly. But before then, no, not a single thing. Just everything was up in the attic. We knew it was there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
It's fine.
I was going to say, what's important, I think, is that the people around you are on board with what you want.
Yeah.
Because I know I have friends who've been through similar, and their experiences I don't want to talk about the baby being here. Not talk about it. I don't want to prepare anything. I don't want people getting really overexcited about it. So it's sort of like a defence mechanism, isn't it? And if the other people that you around you are on board with that, and they're also get that, so they're not sending you messages of being excited and things, then that's really useful. For me, like we decorated the nursery, we did do a few bits, and I did try and get myself a bit excited. And my reasoning for it was because, well, if this baby dies, because that's how you really think, isn't it, when you're pregnant, if this baby dies, I want to have some nice memories of my pregnancy, because I cherish those so much with winter. So I tried to sort of like flip it around, but it was hard. It is hard to prepare.
It's really, really hard.
I think this is a really good time to ask a question that came in before we went live from Charlotte. I think she experienced multiple losses but quite early on, and so the people around her didn't really know that she'd lost babies, and so she was saying, like, how do you navigate that "is this your first baby" question? And everyone's getting really excited for you when you tell them that you're pregnant, but actually without that kind of history about what's come before. And you know, she was saying, I don't really feel excited, I feel scared. So I wondered what your experience was of that.
I think because it really links with what you were saying actually, P, about how do you need people to be on the same page as you, like the kind of getting I'm not excited, or I am a bit excited, but I'm not always going to be overwhelmed with that. I found telling people, I mainly told people by message rather than in person, because I felt like I could sort of type something out and caveat it all with, I'm pregnant again, this is how I'm feeling, this is how I would like you to be able to support me, I'm really scared and I'm not going to be overly excited, and I'd really appreciate it if you could really understand that. And I found that easier, not with everyone, but with lots of people, to put that in a message rather than face to face.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's hard when you've got someone in front of you.
I think I was quite different. So it was literally just our complete immediate families. So that's like my mum and my sisters, his mum and stepdad and his like siblings, and that was literally it. And it was just like, this was like I don't know, like a Kylie Jenner pregnancy. Like it was kept such a secret because I just couldn't bear with having to tell people, and I didn't want people to ask me how I was, and not because I didn't want people to not care, and sometimes I feel really guilty about that, and it's not I intentionally excluded certain people, because there were some members of the family that are close that weren't told up until I think it was like the day or so before, and some were even, I think he told his friends. Most of our friends knew after when we'd actually been like, oh, guess what, we had a baby. And I just kind of went into hiding because I just couldn't deal with that, with having to, if anything goes wrong, I'm going to have to explain to people again. And then you have to deal with those like sad faces and the shoulder rubs and the, do you know what I mean? And the how you doing? So oh, the side, that one. I understand all about that one. So I personally just couldn't deal with it. So we just did not tell anyone apart. It was literally like a need to know basis. And I think it's kind of how you want it, like how you said you wrote like text messages to people that you were close. We kind of just told everyone that we wanted to tell and asked them, and everyone was just so respectful of our wishes. And I think the biggest thing to have is a great support network, which is something that I didn't go through this pregnancy like we all did. I can hand on my heart say, like, from his mum, she was just fantastic, because my mum lives like in Scotland, so she couldn't be there and wasn't easily accessible, but his mum was there. Like, she literally sat in downstairs, like whilst I was being wheeled off to have a C-section, and she sat there through the whole entire thing. She was there the whole night, like even throughout the entire pregnancy. She completely got it. Like, we didn't want to advertise it, we didn't, like, we all had to kind of, it's like I felt like I was making everyone lie, but everyone just got it. No one ever questioned me why I was being like that. No one ever accused me of being over the top. Everyone just kind of understood, you know what, she's pregnant, kind of her baby, her decision to make. So let's just all support and go with it. And it was, without that support system, I probably would have completely lost it. So I think that is a very important thing to have. And it's like, you tell people, it is your baby though, so you tell people when you're ready, even if you've had a live baby before and stuff, like you're not obliged. I think when you're pregnant, you feel like you're obliged, like this, your pregnancy is everyone's pregnancy. Like, I used to have people who just randomly wanted to touch my belly and stuff. It's like, when there's a pregnant lady,
this is not cool.
Everyone just feels like it's their property. And for me, I couldn't even deal with that, because I didn't want to acknowledge my pregnant belly myself, never mind a stranger trying to acknowledge it. So I think it is important to just really deal with an emotion, deal with your emotions as best as you can, and then share them around with you. And your true supporters will support you regardless. And that's how I got through mine, to be honest.
It's an interesting one, because I was just thinking as you were talking, that because we all had really late losses, so you can't really hide from the fact that you're pregnant after loss, because everyone knows that everyone who knows you knows that you've lost a baby. And I think this person who sent the messages in had some early losses, and I know that from some of the women that I work with, it can be difficult when people don't know that you've had a loss, that why you might be struggling with this one, and how do you announce a pregnancy and also kind of previous losses at the same time. And I think that can be really hard, but I think it's really important, if you feel able to and you want to share that to give context as to why you're struggling.
Yeah. I mean, I know I had winter before I had my early losses, so people already knew I had a history of loss. But the thing that I found different with the miscarriages was it felt a lot more secretive, because people, obviously, I hadn't announced that I was pregnant again, so people didn't know, like this lady saying, people didn't know that actually I'd had another loss. And I think I kind of dealt with that by sort of just blaming it on my grief for winter. But really, when I look back, that had brought with it its whole own grief in itself, because it doesn't really matter, if you're a week pregnant and then you lose your baby, you get that positive pregnancy test, don't you? And that's representative of your future and your baby, and you've planned all of that out ahead of you. So I think what's hard is if other people don't know that, then they can't understand your journey, and it's not easy for everyone. But I think what I found easiest in those situations is really just to open up and just speak to people and say, like my close friends said, well, actually I did have a pregnancy before this, but or pregnancies before this, but I lost that baby, so I'm just treading a bit lightly with this one, and that's why I'm not overly excited. But that's hard to do, isn't it? It's hard really to do, but that's sometimes, for me, that was the easiest way of just being honest, really.
Yeah. And it's weird because I was thinking about this on the way here today, because I'd had an early loss before I got pregnant with Orla. I had an ectopic pregnancy, and actually now looking back, and I kind of think I didn't really prepare that much in her. I prepared for birth in that pregnancy, but I didn't prepare for afterwards. And I do wonder whether part of that was the fact that I'd had an early loss, and even I hadn't. I mean, after that loss, I didn't know about Tommy's. I didn't know about all the support that was out there, because I think I just assumed it was something that happens and you just get on with it. But I do think that anxiety was there, and it, because I did have to have early scans with Orla, because the risk of having another ectopic is greater. But yeah, I think it did have an impact, and I think that the anxiety from early losses doesn't just go maybe. I think there's an assumption that you've gone past the point that you lost your previous baby, that you're going to be fine. Yeah. But I think as we said before, it kind of leaks out, doesn't it?
Yeah, because once you're into that baby loss world, the scales have tipped and you know more about loss
than you do.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think you've just covered Danielle's question, but she's experienced 5 miscarriages, and she was saying that, you know, when pregnant, every twinge, everything causes this huge rocket of anxiety, and she just wants to know, is there going to come a point where she doesn't feel anxious in pregnancy?
I mean, like, I think when people ask me that question, I say I wish I could say yes. I wish I could say there's going to be a button that you can press or a magic thing that you can do that's going to switch that off. But the reality is, what you're feeling is normal. Like, what you're feeling is completely normal, understandable in the context of what you've been through. And I think that trying to develop a kind of compassionate understanding for yourself and get other people on board and being compassionate towards you about why this is really hard is the thing that's going to be the most important, rather than trying to kind of get rid of it or deny it or be tough on yourself for experiencing it, because I think it's just such a it's really,
because I think pregnancy, even without loss, is an anxious time anyway. Like my first time round, I was a bit stressed, I was a bit nervous, I just didn't, because it was an implant baby, and I was just thinking, am I going to be a good mum? Do you know, just little things like that. So you are in some way anxious anyway when you're pregnant, and then having to deal with those kind of questions that you'd ask yourself after having losses, it's just completely normal. I don't think you can ever turn it off. Like, honestly, I don't think it's possible. But the best way is acknowledging that it is fine, and like you said, it is normal to have those feelings, and to talk to people. That's what I would say.
It's one of the biggest, phone calls that we get here at Tommy's is, it's mums in early stages of pregnancy who are just absolutely terrified.
Especially because you don't really get hospital support or scan or support, anything like that. So you get your positive pregnancy test, and then it's like, you ring your doctors, and then it's like, oh, I'll see you in 12. Oh, okay, I'll see you at 9 weeks. And you think, I've got to try and keep it in for 9 weeks, keep that pregnancy before. I don't know if anyone else felt like that, but I was like, I've got to somehow cling on to it. One thing that I found helped me though was just accepting I'm going to be anxious. Like, okay, that's it, I'm going to be anxious. I'm not going to try and wait for this anxiety to end. Unfortunately, probably not going to. I'm going to be anxious. It's a different pregnancy, it's a different baby, different outcome, and just allowing myself to be anxious.
I mean, because I think it changed me. The content of my anxious thoughts changed as the pregnancy progressed. But particularly later on, I was thinking, what's my anxiety telling me that I need? And if I was like at work, for example, and my anxiety was really kind of sky high, I kind of thought, well, what information is this giving me? What do I need to do? So do I need to go home, cancel my day? Do I need to just call the midwife and say, oh, I'm feeling awful? Do I need to just go to the hospital and ask to be checked? And rather than trying to ignore it or try and deal with it by myself, and it might have been just what do I need just to sit down and breathe and talk to someone and say, I'm really scared. And like I said, I'm sure people just ring, don't they, the Tommy's midwives, just to get that reassurance that
you need help from work as well. That's the thing, isn't it? Your employer's can have a big effect. Mine was fantastic, and I knew that I could just chip and go home if I needed to. But I know not everybody has that option. It's that's tricky.
It's really, really hard. Yeah, absolutely.
Michelle, we're coming up to the 45-minute mark.
Really?
wow.
Yeah, I know. But I wondered if we could very quickly touch on Emma's question, and we talked a little bit about the whole is it your first baby question, but what happens when people ask you how many children you have? How have you found navigating that question?
This is a hard one. So
Thought I'd give you a hard one to finish.
yeah. For me personally, I still have discussions over this. So personally now, especially since working with Tommy's, I was in their last campaign and I met a lovely bunch of ladies and we touched on this as well. And it's got to a point where for me, I am happy. I've accepted everything that happened. Still a bit of grief there, which I think is normal. It's never going to really go away. But I think the hardest thing for me, because I'm quite like a strong character anyway, so maybe sometimes the way I phrase things, etc. But those things work for me. So sometimes if people ask me how many children you've had, I'll say 2, but I have 1 live baby. And you kind of see their heads sort of
Doing the math.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
hang on, how does that work out? What do you mean? And then once it clicks, I can literally see the light come on in their eyes that they've clocked on what exactly I mean. And now they it goes back to, like you said, the tip of the head and, oh, is that okay? Are you all right? And how do you feel? And it's kind of a bit like, sometimes I do find those questions a little bit patronising, and I think that's why sometimes as well I just don't tell people. I will just say I have the 1 child, because I feel like I can now handle my emotions, but I don't think there's enough awareness around there, around people that actually not every pregnancy leads to a baby. Before Tommy's, I had no idea that 1 in 4 like have a loss, and those are just crazy statistics for me, because I had never met, like, all my sisters have kids, everything's always been fine. I'd never met anyone at all who'd experienced what I'd experienced. So I think it's just that taboo subject, and because it's not put out there enough that other people around there, even though they want to be caring, they want to be nice, they just don't know themselves how to handle a person like me, which then gives me a bit of guilt as well, because then I feel like I've ruined someone's day. Do you know what I mean? Like I've told them my sob story. Do you know what I mean? And I don't want to feel like that. I want to be able to shout out that I had 2 beautiful babies, but just I've got 1 live baby, and I think it's, for me, the biggest reason why I don't mention it sometimes is honestly because of how the other person would react, as opposed to my own truth.
Because I sort of judge the situation. I think because sometimes you can feel guilty, can't you? If you say 1, then I feel like I'm dismissing winter. But then actually, it's not always like that. You know, if I'm buying something in a shop and the 16-year-old cashier says, "Oh, have you just got 1?" You know, I'm not going to go, "Oh yeah, no, my other baby's actually shortly after birth and 2 miscarriages." You know, I'm just going to judge that situation, and I will just say, "Oh yes, I've just got 1." And in my mind, I say, "And I've got winter." And I think to myself, you know, I'm not in that situation. I'm not dismissing him. That's how it always felt to me in the beginning. But actually, I'm just not offloading all my emotional, personal life on somebody that I don't know. You know, I wouldn't tell them all of my other personal things as well in that moment. But having said that, if I'm sat on a bus and I'm having a conversation with somebody and they say, "Oh, have you got any others?" and I feel like, all right, okay, this is a moment, I can say, "Oh no, actually I had a little boy and he died." So I sort of judge it, and I think the other person's reaction is out of my control. That's whatever, that's their, you know, that's how they react. And I always just try and be really compassionate, even if they react in a way that I wouldn't like. I think, God, imagine somebody just turning around and saying something like, you know, I wouldn't know how to necessarily react if somebody said, "Oh, I've got terminal cancer." For example, what's the right way? What would you, how would they want me to react? So I think I just take it on the chin, sort of like, and try and keep it quite light. You know, my son died, but I've got my daughter, and we do lots of campaigning and I blog, you know, and try and make it an opportunity to open up the topic.
Raise awareness. Completely. Which is exactly what I was saying before. Tommy's, it was kind of a bit like, but now I feel like there is a need to talk about it. And
but it is about like what, because I often think like, does this person deserve that piece of my heart? Because you're giving a bit of yourself away. You know, this is my, because that's where I carry all issues in my heart. So does this person deserve that bit of me? And if so, then yes, I'm going to give it to you. But also I think about, how full is my battery today? Like, do I have the resources in me to deal with potentially someone kind of being very overwhelmed, or potentially someone saying something a bit clunky that isn't particularly helpful? That I'm just thinking, well, actually, do I have the resources to deal with that right now? Because it's not their fault, and I'm not judging it. But equally, like, if you're not feeling great, it does kind of bring up this like. So actually, I weigh those two things up, but I think I just always think, but I'm never denying her, because she's here.
Yeah,
she's always here. I'm just not going to give her away. I'm not going to give as much of her as I don't have an infinite amount to give away.
Yeah. I don't know if you find, because I take Raven to lots of play groups, and I think anything that's child based, I know that's a general question, is how many children do you have? It's like you must get asked it 1,000 times at play groups and things. So I do still get anxious about that, even though I know that I can deal with it in the situation. It just feels like I walk into a class or something with Raymond and I think, oh, my stomach's knotted. I'm waiting for the first person to like crack it and say.
Sometimes you just want to blurt it out before they do.
Yeah,
just want to go, by the way, everyone. Just to let you know. Just so you know.
Yeah, but it does sometimes feel like that, doesn't it?
Because then you're just like,
right,
we can talk openly now, because
it's
that's
not
it.
socially acceptable though, I don't think.
It's not questions.
That's what I mean though.
I'm amazed by the personal question of are you having children? Do you have children? When are you going to get pregnant?
I have asked those things though.
I know.
I think back now I
completely.
don't ask those questions, but I have asked those before.
I've probably mixed about it though, because there's part of me that thinks, we shouldn't ask those questions, but then I just think that in asking those questions, we trying to normalise the conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because if we don't talk about those, then...
And especially if somebody answers, actually I've been trying for a long time. I don't know, it's not the same situation, but we can draw from our own compassion, can't we? And so I think, I've actually got the resources to maybe try and...
To help you again, like you were saying.
I think it's just difficult. There's like no right or wrong way of kind of dealing with it. It's just... It's a day-to-day thing, and it's like... I think one of the things that in the last session that I was in, we kind of concluded that one of the things that we miss is that innocence before all of this happened. I think you've just said then, you used to ask all these questions, but now you have to think about it, and I have to think about it when I see pregnant women, like, maybe she's not that happy to be pregnant. Do you know what I mean? Maybe she's not, like, maybe I should just be all, oh my gosh, congratulations! What do you do? Like, not everyone wants to talk about their due date. No, everyone wants to talk about their pregnancies. And I think it's just, I miss kind of that naivety of like not having to, or even about myself. I wish I could just say, just the one baby, and just walk away smiling without feeling any type of guilt or any type of way. So I think the most important thing is to just kind of gauge the people that you're around, and always share your story. I think if you want to, if it's something that you're comfortable with, don't ever feel like you need to go around telling people. You in yourself, like, you were a mum, so it doesn't matter, like, you know yourself that you love your child regardless of what happened, so you don't need to be telling every Tom, Dick and Harry, so to speak. It's up to you who you decide to share with.
And I know, because we probably need to finish, don't we? But I'm just thinking, what we haven't spoken about is how do you find your support? And I think before we finish, it's probably worth mentioning about like Tommy's Midwives and being able to call them whenever you feel that you need to. Finding other people who've been through a similar experience. I think that definitely was, for me, one of the most important things, using Instagram and other resources online to find people who were going through similar experiences, so you can kind of go, I feel like this, what do you think? And I think that this tool that Tommy's have developed, and having that particular path that you can look at developing a wellbeing plan when you're pregnant after loss or a premature birth, how do you get the support that you need personal to you and your experiences? I think that's kind of the key thing, I guess, what we would...
And we've got a new Tommy's support group for parenting after loss as well on Facebook. So that's just started.
Cool. And I think any questions that haven't been answered today, the Tommy's Midwife is going to be answering those afterwards. But thank you for the questions that you did send in. They're really interesting and helpful. I think this whole thing's quite an interesting experience, just reflecting on kind of what we've been through and where we've